Hi everyone, welcome back. So I've got some apologies to make. There hasn't been a video for a little while on the channel and I'm really sorry about that. I had my first COVID jab and oh my god, like the tiredness, I cannot tell you. And I did actually film a video for Watermelon and I put it up and then I realised it was like 34 minutes long and I'd done the editing really weird and the video was not great anyway, but I was just going to put it up because I had it. But yeah, it just didn't do the book justice at all. And honestly, I looked like a weird kind of zombie, crazy, like something out of I Am Legend, one of those like zombie people in I Am Legend or 28 Days Later or something. I looked like one of those. So you're very glad you didn't have a video for that. And I've decided to change my upload date from a Friday to a Monday. So I started this channel when I was unemployed. I got made redundant due to COVID, which I'm more than happy to talk about if anyone's interested in that and the whole process and how I felt with it, because I know there hasn't been a whole lot of that on here. So yeah, Fridays at that point were really easy for me, but I'm working again now and I've been working for a while and I'm just finding Fridays a little bit difficult to kind of shoehorn into filming in the week because, you know, work and you're tired and then you've just got your evenings. And so if I upload on a Monday, I can film at the weekend, edit over the weekend and then upload it for you guys on a Monday, and hopefully there won't be any more missing weeks. So we're going to see how we get on with that. And today we are finally finishing our series of videos on the Walsh Sisters book by Marian. So we're going back in our timeline here. So I know that the last book we did was The Mystery of Mercy Close, which is just there. So we're zooshing, oh no, not quite to there, to just before there, just before Rachel's holiday. So this book, so just so you can get the timeline right in your head. So we're 2 years before Rachel's holiday came out. So Rachel's still in New York. Rachel hasn't even met Luke yet. Rachel's living the dream in New York, coked out of her head. And yeah, then we're on to Claire. So Claire in Watermelon, her book is Watermelon, and Claire is the oldest sibling in the Walsh family. She's the older sister. She is 29 in this book, so there's at least a 2-year-ish age gap between her and Rachel, because I think there's only like a year between Rachel and Margaret. 2-ish year, 2.5, almost 3-year age gap between her and Rachel. And in this book, Claire is living in London. She's married to a man called James. She's been living in London for about 5-6 years now. And that's where we are in this book. So we start this book on the day that Claire gives birth to her first child. Her first child that we know is Kate, who we have been reading about as a vile early teenager, or I guess a tween. No, I think she's a natural early teenager, like 13, 14, in The Mystery of Mercy Close, where she's a bit of a Helen. She's a bit of a nightmare. But in Watermelon, Kate is just born and she's a nice, sweet little newborn. So that's where we're at. And on the day that Claire gives birth to her first child, Kate, is the day that Claire's husband, James, decides to tell her that he's leaving her and that he's been having an affair and he thinks that this is the right time to tell her. I mean, right for who exactly? I'm not quite sure who James thinks it's right for. I'm guessing himself, because, you know, giving birth is a thing. You know, it's not right for Claire. Maybe, I don't know. I just think, like, for me, I have a real issue with men who cheat on their girlfriends or wives or partners or whatever they refer to them as, wife in this case, when they're pregnant. To me, that's the worst thing that a man can pretty much do, apart from committing a crime. And there's a lot of crimes that I would forgive over cheating on someone when they're pregnant. That's just a no in my book. That's just the lowest you can possibly think. So you know that I don't think James is a good guy in this book. So that's where we are. James has sunk to the lowest level that a man can sink to without committing some heinous crimes. That's where we're at. So poor Claire is exhausted, she's tired, she's just given birth. She's furious at James as well, underneath all the tiredness and the fogginess and the emotionalness and the fact that she's just pushed another human being out of her body. You know, she's been through the ringer. She decides that the only way she's going to be able to deal with this and to get through this is to go back to Dublin, to the bosom of her family. Well, it's the Walshes, so it's not quite a bosom, it's a Walshes. They're nice to each other, but they're mean to each other. That's how they kind of show they love each other. And, you know, we know that Daddy Walsh, as much as he loves his family, he's not, you know, the best communicator, much as he buys, you know, Grazia and Closer and all of those. And Anna, at this point, is away with the fairy still. She's with Shane, and she's doing a lot of recreational drugs still. She's in her long, her long, like, you know what I mean, those long skirts with, like, the little mirrors in them that are a bit like, they're like frou-frou. They're like crimpy. They always kind of remind me of that crimp paper you used to get when you were at school, in junior school. So yeah, she's in those skirts. She's away with the fairies, so she's not going to be much help. I think that Kate is a great new toy. I want to share her and play with her and then give her back to Claire when she needs a nappy change or something. Which, to be fair, I do feel like that's an auntie's job anyway. I mean, I know with my nephew, like, I love going around and playing with him and kind of winding him all up and then going, here you go, to my sister, handing him back. So I feel like that's kind of, Helen's doing her job as an auntie at that point. Maggie is in Chicago, Rachel's in New York, so that just leaves Claire with Mammy Walsh, who, as much as Mammy Walsh is great and will do her best, she's still very Mammy Walshist. So, you know, poor Claire, she's going through it a bit here. And then while she's, Claire is trying to get into the swing of being a parent and kind of, you know, putting her life back together in Dublin with whatever that's going to look like, James decides to wheedle his way back into her life, telling her that he's made a massive mistake. No shit, Sherlock, I could have told you that for nothing. On the very day that you told her you were leaving her, I could have told you that that was a massive mistake. I mean, honestly, like, seriously, James, no shit. No shit. So, you know that Claire is obviously considering this because, you know, James is her daughter's father and they are married and, you know, they have been together for a while. They've got a flat together, they've got a life together, and now they've got a child together. So I can understand that Claire considers that. But while Claire has been in Dublin before James tries to wheedle his way back in, Claire meets a man, a very kind of sexy, good-looking man, who, you know from Rachel's holiday that Helen knows the size of his manhood. So in this book, he's at uni with Helen. So Mammy Walsh thinks that Helen has a bit of a crush on him, or they've been seeing each other or something, but Helen feels more for Adam than possibly he feels for her. Mammy Walsh also thinks that this is the first time it's ever happened to Helen, so it's quite a mix of emotions and experiences for her. And in the Watermelon, Adam takes a shine to Claire and Claire takes a shine to Adam. So she's kind of got more of a love triangle-y thing going on than they make out that Helen does in Mystery of Mercy Close. So it's not a choice between either men, because she could perfectly happily raise Kate on her own without either of them, but she's just got the option of Adam there in the back of her mind. And there's also, you know, James, who I get that she feels like she should go back to. We know the answer to this question anyway because we've read all the other books and we've read Watermelon as well, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm just going to tell you that my frustrations with this book, I think, is that the Claire we know in the other books is really feisty and she's a real feminist. And I do think it does take her going through what she goes through in Watermelon to get to that point. But at the same time, I think she's how do I put this diplomatically? She's a bit of a, I don't know, and I don't know if this is because of the time and it was the late 90s, you know, but Claire just, I don't know, it really irritates me. She never really gives James what for. She never really, like, lays it all out to him what he's done. Like, what an absolute arsehole, what an absolute excuse for a human being he has been. What an absolute lowlife, dickhead, lowest of the low you can absolutely, you know, get. He's done something so shitty, and she never really gives him what for. Even though she gets all dressed up, she gets in black dress, you know, she puts the heels on, power heels on, storms through Heathrow or Gatwick, I can't remember, one of them, you know, to go and kind of have it out with James, but she never really does. And I'm just like, oh, Claire, come on. I'm really rooting for her in that moment, and it just doesn't quite land. She tries, though, but it doesn't quite land. And I guess that's my real frustration with this book. I just want her to, like, give him a piece of her mind. But at the same time, I do get that, you know, she's just had a baby. In this book, Kate is really not very old, and it's really not very long since Claire gave birth, like the whole book. So you get that. And I get that, you know, he's the father of her child, but he's still done a really shitty thing, and he deserves to be given a piece of Claire's mind. And that's the thing that, it just really annoys me about this book. And I think that's why Watermelon is kind of lower down on my favourites of the Walsh Sister books. Just because I feel like, I get really annoyed with Claire in it. I just want her to be, like, I just want her to be a bit more feisty, like the Claire that we know that she is in the other books. Because I think reading it now, having read all the other books, I know what Claire becomes, and I want her to be that person in this book, so it's quite frustrating in that sense. But other than that, I do really enjoy this book, and I think it's a really good introduction to the Walsh family and to the sisters as well. And I like that in this book, like they do in Mercy Close with the whole lads thing, there's the connection to characters in other books that Marian Keyes has written. I just really like that she does that. I don't know, I just like that. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and I'm really sorry it's taken me so long to get this video up. Blame bloody COVID and the vaccine, blame Pfizer for that, and I will see you next week with my top 5, or my order of these Walsh Sister books. I know I'm going to string this out, but I've got some good ones coming up after this, I promise you. My new box of stories box has just arrived, so I will see you next week.